Maths is not just reading in a textbook, x plus y equals square root of whatever. Maths is really important for life, and here are some examples.
G'day team, Justin here from Mountain Maths on one of the most spectacular days you're ever likely to see here in the Blue Mountains, New South Wales, Australia. And Mountain Maths, if you're wondering, is a resource for all students, but particularly for high school students who want to know where high school maths is used in the real world. So we're going to make that connection on this channel. Not just looking towards exams, not just looking towards textbooks, we're going to be looking towards where mathematics is used out in the real world. And we're going to interview people in particular jobs that are using mathematics on a daily basis. The first of which is the most delightful Annie Smoker, who, despite the funny name, is one of the most lovely people you're ever likely to meet. And you'll see when I interview her just in a couple of minutes. And we get into where mathematics is used in her role, and she brings up some really interesting points about how if you get mathematics wrong, if you get decimal points wrong, if you get percentages wrong, you can be giving a patient an incorrect dosage of something that's extremely crucial to their health. So that's what we're about here at Mountain Maths. If you like the gist, like the channel, subscribe, do all those lovely things, and let me know. You can leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see on the channel, because I'm open for suggestion. Anyway, I'll leave it to Annie to take it away, and this is Mountain Maths. Enjoy.
Yep, awesome. So, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us on Mountain Maths.
My pleasure, I'm happy to be here.
Great. Now, I brought you in because you are a nurse extraordinaire. My own words, but I believe there's some established fact behind those words. Whereabouts do you work as a nurse, Annie? And can you give us a background as to how you got there and what your interest was in nursing?
Sure. So I work in drug and alcohol in Surrey Hills at a place called the Langton Centre. It's a very different kind of nursing to regular ward nursing. I went into nursing straight after school. I really wanted to do it. I couldn't tell you why I wanted to do it. I think it was just the innate wanting to look after other people. And it has given me great purpose. I love it. It's one of the best jobs ever. You can travel with it. If you don't want to do drug and alcohol nursing like I'm doing, you can go into cardiology or hematology, and a lot of the skills are transferable. So it's a really amazing job. But yeah, I was a ward nurse at RPA, major teaching hospital, for about 10 years. And then I moved to drug and alcohol, really because I wanted 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and I wanted to wear civvies. But turns out I love drug and alcohol. So there I am, and there I will remain forever, I think.
Right, but so a normal nursing gig is more than 9 to 5?
Yes, normal nursing gig is shift work. Public holidays don't count, weekends don't count. You get rostered with, it may have changed since I was in a public hospital, but it probably wouldn't have changed much. But you usually get a 2-week roster. With usually only 2 weeks notice. So that was a bit tough when I was younger and wanting to go out and make plans with my life. And you just get rostered whatever you're rostered, and that's kind of the cards that you're dealt, and you go in and do that. So that could be what's called a quick shift or quick shifts, which is where you do a late and then an early. So you might work 2:15 to 11 p.m. You're back at 7 in the morning to do a morning shift. You do nights within your month rotation of shifts, all sorts of things. But you get extra money for that, but you're paying the price in lifestyle. So you've just got to kind of figure out what's going to work for you and your life. And for me, it's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, drug and alcohol. I love it.
Great. So why is it that you were attracted to the drug and alcohol side of things? Because to me, it sounds like that might be quite intense and quite an intense part of nursing to get involved in. What drew you to drug and alcohol?
I think initially my love for drug and alcohol formed once I was in drug and alcohol. You're dealing with the most vulnerable.
We should probably say that your love of drug and alcohol nursing.
Nursing,
rather than
yes.
love of drug and alcohol.
Yes. My love of drug and alcohol nursing, my job. I fell in love with drug and alcohol nursing really once I started working in it, because I didn't really know what it involved entirely. It is very different to standard ward nursing. In that it's more of a social work role. It's less of a giving injections, dealing with wounds, which I really miss. I love that stuff. All nurses form different skill sets, and I really love things like that. So I'm doing less of that now. It's more social work, but it's really, really fabulous. And you're dealing with the people that society classes as words that I won't use here, that I would not use, but so much of it is lack of understanding. So the perspective that it's given me on my life, sorry, I touched the mic. The perspective that it's given me on my life is ward nursing. Because of what you see in general ward nursing at a major hospital, I'm thankful every day that I'm compos mentis, my brain works, I have 10 fingers and 10 toes. Because you realise when you're in that every day that it's lucky. You're lucky if you're like that and you're born with a fully functioning body. Not everybody gets that privilege. Working in drug and alcohol makes you very acutely aware of the fact, makes me acutely aware of the fact that I was loved enough and given enough to live the life that I am leading now, and my life is amazing. And I'm reminded of that regularly, and I get paid to be reminded of that really. So I'm very thankful for that, because so many of the people that I work with are not bad people. They're very nice people. They're some of the nicest people, but they've lived lives, or they've had to have childhoods that are so devastating that I would surely be doing the same things that they're doing if I had gone through those experiences. And you're faced with these experiences that these people are living every day, and it's amazing what people survive and how people can thrive, and the fact that people can remain kind through it all is inspiring. So I love it.
Where in your job, in your sort of day-to-day activities you do as a nurse, do you use mathematics?
Yeah,
are there certain places where you need to be quite numerate?
Yes, so general nursing, there's medication calculations every day. I do less of the medication calculations that you would encounter in a public hospital or a private hospital. The things that I deal with are more, I work with Schedule 8 medications, so they're the most dangerous class of medications, I guess is one way of putting it. So opioids, things like methadone, all the opioids, MS Contin, OxyContin, all of that would be Schedule 8 medications.
When you say Schedule 8, what does that actually refer to? That's
What it refers to is if I am to lose 1 ml of methadone in a 4-hour period of dosing, literally the police have to be involved. In figuring that out.
It's a regulatory thing.
It's regulated, yes.
The police, okay, right.
It's regulated. We can't dispense any of these medications to anyone without getting authority from an official organisation who gives us that approval based on a whole bunch of things, because you don't want people to be dosing somewhere and getting a dose from us, because you can die if you have too much of this medication. And at the end of shift, we usually have overages of the liquid medication we give, but if you have an underage, first of all, the book needs to match. So the point whatever decimal place really matters. You can't mess that up. And I've seen new nurses get confused over that. You've got to have that base maths, but also kind of the habit of using that in your day-to-day work life where we are. But if you're out by 1 ml, 2 mls, there's really serious consequences for that, in that I could lose my registration. There could be the assumption that I've consumed that medication. Literally the police need to be involved, which feels like a bit much, but it's really, there's lots of weight put on what we do and the medications that we're giving and the accuracy of that. So decimal places are important, making sure things are calibrated is important, and making sure our maths is important at the beginning and at the end of shift, and sometimes in between. We'll get deliveries halfway through a dosing period, so you have to kind of stop things, make sure that's in the computer, make sure your paperwork's off to the appropriate organisations so that they know it's received for their checks and balances, and it all has an effect on your numbers. Tolerance is really important when you're talking about opioid use and Schedule 8 medications. If I, for example, if you broke your leg and I broke my leg, but I used opioids every day, I automatically have a much higher tolerance. So that needs to be taken into consideration when we both get dosed medication, sure. Because you might get
a few little whatever.
You might even need a couple of Panadol if you don't usually take pain relief,
right.
And that would help you, whereas I might need morphine, something much more dangerous, but it's actually the only thing that's going to get past that pain barrier because I have a much higher tolerance. But then in terms of calculating that, one thing that we do is if someone misses a certain amount of days because of tolerance, because we can't guarantee that you've been using a similar amount of opioids to have the same effect as the medications we give on the days you've not come to see us for whatever reason, you've been sick, you went to a funeral, you went saw family, whatever, you're in custody. We have policies that we follow so that we don't overdose you. So you may well come in and say, yes, but I use $200 of heroin every day, but just in case, we have to make sure we safely dose you. So when people come in intoxicated, they get stopped, we have a conversation. Depending on the medication that you've been given, or the drug that you've had, depending on the drug that you've had that's causing your intoxication, it may well still be safe to give you your methadone or your Schedule 8 medication that we're giving on top of something else, and it's not going to have an interaction, but we need to be able to figure that out. So it's about like forming trust between us. You need to trust me
but you can
more than I need to trust you, really.
Yeah, of course.
So you've got to respect people, not judge people, and then you can work out the maths more easily.
Presumably you're using ratios?
Yeah.
Do you use percentages at all?
Percentages, I would use, you use percentages to figure out your pay. Obviously the pay gets figured out for you, but there are sometimes mistakes. So a really important thing is to be able to have the basic maths so that you can figure out if it's incorrect and get it rectified.
Right.
Which happens. And you go without pay for years. You want to be able to know how that works.
That's right.
Get on top of that ASAP, get paid what you're owed.
Do you also need to understand sort of or engage yourself with research around like what's happening in nursing generally, or do you deal with sort of percentages of the population that are in the drug and alcohol wards and that kind of thing?
So there's lots of research that happens in drug and alcohol, and it's very interesting. I've presented at a conference myself with another nursing colleague of mine, and we certainly were looking at the effects of it. Was about hepatitis C rates in our population and things like the percentage of Indigenous population in drug and alcohol with hepatitis C versus general population. Percentages, it all affects research, and all of that has a great impact on what we do because we've got a new medication because of research. So we were part of running a trial for one of the medications, which has been a game changer for where we work. And that's now injectables. We never had injectable medications. So giving people Schedule 8 injections, working out what medication they need. There's like some of the medications it's 0.46 of a mil, some of it's 0.26 of a mil, figuring all of that out, making sure you're giving them the correct medication, because then you have the dosage amount tied to that, which for a 0.46 mil might be 128 milligrams, for 0.26 might be 32 milligrams. There's all the non-math stuff that's really important, figuring out you're giving it to the right person at the right time, all of that. And then figuring out based on what they're on and what their reaction to that medication is like when you're going to book them in next. So that's anywhere between 3 weeks and 5 weeks usually, or 1 week and 5 weeks. So figuring all of that out. And so we use the medication, the patient's history, the dose that they're on, their personal story about how it affects them. Some people, medications wear off. You hear about people who, for example, might take a non-drowsy antihistamine and they're in bed for 3 days, or they'll take a drowsy antihistamine and it has the opposite effect and they're actually more alert. So that actually has an impact on what we might give someone, the effect of the medication on them as an individual. So all of that has to come into consideration, and that ends up in the mathematics of what you're actually going to give them and then when you're going to give it to them as well.
So that's fascinating. You incorporate a whole bunch of qualitative information with the...
And subjective, a lot of it is a mix of objective and subjective information to make a decision.
I do want to ask you, because you are involved, this is just an interesting part of your role as a nurse outside of the actual drug and alcohol facility, but you're involved in the union, is that right? The nursing union?
Yes.
Just give us a bit of detail about that. So why is what is the nurses union, and why did you get involved in that?
So the nurses union is very important, as are all unions. I got involved because there's lots of things that happen in nursing that shouldn't be happening, or things that should change, I believe, and the general nursing population believes. So things like pay increases, unions on a base level are the reason that we have 40-hour work weeks as a standard, sick leave, more recently domestic violence leave. I was at the Sydney Parliament House talking to government officials about why we should have domestic violence leave as part of the general leave allowances. That's finally come through, which is good. I don't know how much influence I personally had on that, but it was interesting to see how the system works. But there's just so much that we as a collective can do. And it takes the individual, it's all well and good for me to go, this sucks and I wish I got paid more, and they gave us a 0% pay rise during the pandemic and we were all stuck at work and working harder than ever. How dare they? Totally agree with that opinion, but you actually have to, as a people and as an individual, get out and say what you think is right and try and make the change. And that's where the union comes in. So I love that the nursing union, there's lots of nurses, so we're quite a large union, which ideally means we have a bigger impact in making change that we think is right. And if we're looked after and if we're happy in our jobs, then we do a better job of looking after others. And I don't want to leave, but I also want to get paid appropriately, for example. And so
there are specific things that you've been asking for from the government.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Percentage pay increases, right?
Percentage pay increases.
Okay, there's some math there, but
yeah. And there's been a history of agreements that we could ask for a certain percent every 3 years, and then the government changed that, and we think that you should have unlimited percentage that you can ask for. Not that we're going to ask for a 45% increase, but just having those caps and then having the government just ignore what they've agreed to. So they agreed to us having a certain percentage we could ask for. They didn't have to give it to us, but we were allowed to ask for it every 3 years. And then they removed that so that they just gave us 0% and we didn't have any right to ask for the percentages anymore.
Wow. Yeah, right.
So fighting for that stuff and fighting for knowing about the maths and knowing how that affects you so you can actually go out there, have the information and make an articulate stand to try and get needs met for nurses.
Because ultimately, when you're, I guess, confronting the government, you have to talk about dollars, don't you? Because realistically, they're after people's, health and well-being.
Yeah.
But it costs money, and you have to try to convince them in a.
Yes, and that was the struggle for me because I'm very much caring, emotional nursing. I talk to people all day. There's lots of maths involved, but the crux of it, a lot of it is on an emotional level.
Yeah, sure.
And so going to government, what was quite confronting for me, because I don't experience it often, not being a lawyer, not being in government, is having that, I don't care about your feelings.
Give me the numbers.
How is this going to affect us? What are we going to have to pay? What's the bottom line? So figuring that out, going to meetings and then getting better at having that conversation was great. And a good skill for life, I guess. It's all good skills for life, all your experiences where you learn something. But yeah, getting better at the maths was beneficial, and now we have DV leave as the most recent success.
What sort of leave is that?
Domestic violence leave.
DV, sorry.
As part of the, domestic violence leave. I'm in a world of acronyms, I apologise.
That's fine.
I go through them. Yeah.
Awesome, that's so useful. Thank you so much,
No
Annie.
worries.
Thanks for joining us on Mountain Maths.
My pleasure, and I want to say one thing.
Please.
What I love about this conversation is just that it's happening. Because for me, hearing about this and hearing that high schoolers are going to hear this, my upbringing, if I can get personal for a second, my upbringing, I was just told that I was dumb all the time. And then that translated into school. And what I wish that I had parents that didn't really talk to me about life and stuff. And not that I hope that's nobody who's watching this, but just in case it is, it's so heartening to me that there's people who are wanting to have that conversation and show kids that maths is not just reading in a textbook, x plus y equals square root of whatever. Maths is really important for life, and here are some examples so you can actually translate that. And it's, I didn't do well in school, but I've done well since school because I now have that understanding of you enjoy something, you're going to learn it. So it's about finding that enjoyment in certain subjects so that you can actually take it on board, make the most of it, and it's going to put you in good stead for the rest of your life, I promise.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks so much.
No worries.
All right, and that brings us to the end of episode 1 of Mountain Maths. If you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel, like the video, you know what to do. Mountainmaths.com is the website. We're going to put up a whole lot more resources trying to explain how high school mathematics is used in the real world. And if you enjoyed it, I'm glad. I'll catch you next time. My name's Justin. Catch you around.